welcome back to Reclaiming America. I think we have a lot to talk about today, seeing that this is just a couple of days after the election. Uh, Before we get started, we want to tell you that our partner Greta is off today. We had a long stretch getting ready to run this election in our county,
She's off
and she had to spend
recuperating.
leave for a few days. So,
You,
she's enjoying family, and we wish her well and the family well too.
you
She's
gave
doing
her a
great.
little bit of a break finally.
I think she just took it.
Well, good for her because I know that you don't believe in giving days off to your people. So,
She and I worked every day from early voting starting till election day.
so three-ish weeks, give or take.
We have 17 days of early voting, and then we had 2 days of getting ready for election day. So
So it's just out of curiosity. What were the lines like in your area? Because in my area, I lucked out. I went on a Friday night, did early voting. I got there about 4, and I had only about a 20-minute wait. But other than that, the place that I was watching, which is where I voted, on average was 2 to 2.5 hour wait.
we were running during early voting, the first 10 days of early voting anyway,
Mm.
probably anywhere from an hour to 2 hour waits everywhere.
So pretty
Yeah.
consistent with what I was seeing.
Yeah. And the when we got closer to the end, it dropped down a little bit. It became a
Yep.
half hour wait here and there.
Yep.
And election day was actually our lightest day.
I think that would be the same here where I am. When I drove by that spot, well, obviously they shipped it because the early voting's in one spot, but they moved it to another one. I drove by that spot mostly out of curiosity. I wanted to see what the line looked like. It was about 2 in the afternoon, and it wasn't that busy. I would venture a guess it was probably half hour wait, give or take. But it was interesting to see that, and the reason I wanted to ask you is one of the issues that we're seeing is the total number of voters is way down from 2020. Uh,
Yeah, yet we turned out the biggest numbers we've had,
I,
which is a little bit incongruous.
Something ain't making.
81 million for Biden, and he's got a landslide going with 75 million.
I know it's like something
Two
ain't
more
making.
counties to go, so maybe he gets two more states to go. Maybe he gets to 77 million with a landslide, and Biden beat him 4 years ago by another 4 or 5 million.
Something ain't
And if you
making
look at that,
sense.
it's the bridge I have for sale for you
Yeah,
to look at.
something is not making sense. It's neither here nor there now. It's 2024, not 2020. And we have a new president elect. So I'm sure our
Yes, we
audience
do.
knows that that's happened. So just,
Yeah, unless they've been in a bomb shelter for the last week.
well, over the next,
And some of them might have been from what the stories
I
were out
was
there.
going to say,
They might have been preparing
I
for what
think
was
some
going
of
on.
them are about to head into them. And we'll get to that. But initial thoughts on the results of the election.
I think Trump did what he set out to do. He put a coalition together, which is beyond traditional republicanism. It's a combination of Republicans, Democrats, unaffiliated, uh, some of the people who have never voted before. I will tell you, in our county, and I've seen it, and I've had people working there telling me they had person after person coming in that were asking questions like, "What happened to the electronic machines, which haven't been around for 6 years?"
But
So this was a lot of people who have never voted before. So he reached out to a base that really wasn't involved up to this point and got him involved. So power to him. He's done well.
and that was one of the takeaways that I had is that he crossed party lines in a lot of cases, although the Democrats don't want to admit that. There is a decent swath, it looks like, of black female voters that didn't go to the polls. I've been analyzing a lot of this for the last couple of days because it fascinates me. And looking at what triggered all this, and as you know, I have a separate channel where I talk about men's issues, and I was pumping up the men's vote beforehand, and not that I take any credit for it, but the men decided this election. I have zero doubt about that. They came out in droves, and I think a large reason for that, Bill, and I want to give credit to Trump here, is he did something the Republican Party hasn't done for till going back to Reagan, which is he actually acknowledged there's male voters out there and reached out to them and said, "I'll listen to you." He really did. I mean, going on Rogan's podcast, who is very heavily young male oriented. He Trump did not take the young male vote, the male vote in general, but the young male vote in particular, for granted, which the Republican Party has done for the better part of 40 years. And they showed up in droves for him.
Yeah, I agree. And he went to places like barbershops where he went in and actually, places that are generally male dominated, for want of a better term,
Garbage
and he
trucks.
was there and he listened.
Yeah.
He listened and he explained what he had to say and, what he was doing. And it resonated. I mean, if you look at the numbers in the Hispanic side of the House,
Yeah.
55% of the Hispanic males voted for Trump, who voted. Okay. And you had an additional, depending who you want to listen to, 20 to 25% of the black males voting for Trump, which is a significantly
Oh,
big
that's
number.
a that's a monstrous change.
And, that's why he's put a coalition together that is beyond party, and
And
the
it,
trouble you're going to have with it is in 4 years, he's not there anymore.
but
So someone's going to have to come up and take over this coalition. Maybe Vance, maybe somebody
well, I'm
else. Who
gonna
knows?
I'm gonna eat a little crow right now because you know that I had nothing against JD Vance. You know that, but I wasn't his biggest fan. Let's be honest, right? I thought Trump would have been better going in another direction. I have to say, was it 2 3 days before the election? Well, he went on about 4 or 5 days. I didn't watch it till 2 or 3 days ahead. But Vance went on Rogan's podcast and talked for 3 hours and changed my mind on him. If I can be so blunt, he really did. Not because of anything he specifically said, Bill. It was the way he did it. Right?
I
He's
agree.
Trump without all the bombast. And I watched Trump's going on that podcast, and to be fair to Trump, he was not Trump on that. But he shows he gets lost in the weeds too easily. I forget what he calls it. He'll start weaving in and out of things and telling a story and all that. He gets way too lost in that, or especially on a 3 hour podcast. And Rogan kept trying to pull him back. But again, Trump came across as, for lack of a better term, a normal human being. And I think that and Vance just blew me away. I'm not going to lie. And I was very skeptical of Vance. Those are
And
game changers.
I had some skepticism because my initial looking at him and listening to him did not impress me. Or maybe that was my Northeast growing up and with my views, whatever else. But I have to tell you, very quickly he won me over, and I think he's the right choice for the man. And I think down the road he may be the person that can keep this group running
As
because
of right now, I think he is. We're literally, as we're filming this, 3 days after the election. So things are going to change.
you think.
I am very comfortable as we're recording this with the future with Vance. Maybe even more so than I am with Trump. Because I think he bought into what Trump's trying to do. Uh, like you talked about building a coalition. You look at where his cabinet might end up. People like, well, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., they've all been announced is going to be in the cabinet. I think he's
And basically in charge of big
I
pharma.
think he's getting Health and Human Services, which will
Yeah.
give him oversight on that. I think Tulsi is going to get a cabinet post.
Yep. That's a given
I am
too.
praying for either SecDef or Secretary of State for her. Although, there's others, but I would love to see Tulsi as SecDef number one, Secretary of State two.
Wait a minute. To be fair, you would just love to see
Well,
Tulsi.
that's
Just stop everything.
no denial there, my friend. No denial.
Okay.
But she's a brilliant woman,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and she presents herself well
and
too.
I think she, unlike past SecDefs, can reach out to somebody like an Iran, and talk to them a little bit differently. She can be firm but humanitarian, for lack of a better term. I think she'd be masterful at either of those positions, or any position for that matter. But when you look at that now, again, because you were teasing me, oh, Tulsi's now a Republican and all that, but I wish she hadn't done that. To be honest with you, I wish she'd stayed independent. Uh, be that as it may, you look at somebody like Kennedy, and I saw Vance say yesterday. Well, I saw it yesterday. It may have been the day before, where they're basically going to give Kennedy almost carte blanche to do what needs to be done. I think Trump is a businessman, and he is going to say, "Here's what I want. Go make it happen, and you've got X number of time to get it done. This road, right? You got 2 years or whatever, and if you
They
don't,
basically told him, stay out of foreign affairs,
yeah,
stay
stay in your
stay
lane."
out of the economy,
Yep.
and do whatever you want dealing with human resources, dealing with kids, doctors,
Mm-hmm.
the medical programs, whatever you think is correct, go do it. Just stay out of the other stuff.
Stay
And I
out of,
think Kennedy,
stay in your lane, and that's what we've needed as a country forever, right? And then there's Elon. And
oh yeah,
what people don't understand, because I was talking with someone about this. Oh, Elon's a radical right wing, blah blah blah, and I'm like, do you realize that up until about 2 years ago, Elon was considered left wing, far left wing? No, he wasn't. Yeah, he was actually. Probably about 2020, 2021, he started shifting, but he was a Democrat, left leaning Democrat, just like Tulsi was, right? He saw
well,
the
again, as Kennedy said, the party left them. They didn't leave the
yes,
party.
yes, and I think seeing that, I am really hopeful that Trump will do what needs to be done in the sense that here's your mandate. The people gave it to you, not him. Um, Go effing get it done. And if you don't get it done, I'm going to fire your ass.
I
Um,
agree.
you know,
I
I
think
I just hope he
I think we're in
sticks.
for big things, the big shakeups. What I'm very glad that we're going to be seeing is that the we have a Senate right now that's Republican, so we can get his people approved between the 5th of June,
Well,
January, and the 20th, or or there shortly after, and not run into a Schumer operation, which would delay them forever.
here's my fear is that we're going to see, yes, the Republicans have control of the Senate, and as we're filming this, looks like they're going to have the House. It's not official yet, unless things change this morning and I don't know it. Uh,
Last thing I heard, they were too short.
yes, but they're still counting, and they should make it. Um, my fear is that it'll go back to the same old Republican Party like we saw in 2016 to 2018, where
Well,
they get their panties in a bunch, and they better effing
it's
realize.
different now. What's going to be different now, and again, at this particular point, I don't disagree with you completely, but what's going to be different now is there's going to be some play with 53 or 54 votes. So the people out of Alaska, who Lisa over there, who votes half the time with the damn Democrats, uh, doesn't her vote won't matter. Up till now, it was a swing vote for what we're doing, but there's going to be some padding there with the numbers that she can break off and do what she needs to do. There's not going to be we don't have Romney back again to
Right.
do his damage.
That Susan,
So
what's her name from Maine? I'm blanking on
yeah,
her. Like,
yeah, but again, if one or two of them break off, you still have a majority
but
with 53 or 54.
it'll be interesting to see who they name as the leader. When McConnell's out, thank
Yeah.
God. I just my fear and I really fear this, Bill, is that it's going to be 2016, 2018 all over again because the Republican Party does what they do best. And we saw it in our state. They snatched defeat from the jaws of victory times three big races. And I legitimately fear what happened in 2016 to 2018 is going to happen again. And if they do that, if they even create a whiff that they're doing that, they're done because people will turn on them like that. Um,
They know they're saying the right words right now.
they
Yeah,
always say
they
the
will.
right words.
Yeah, but at this point, I'm thinking that maybe because even Thune, who's talking about being the leader, and I forget who the other one is that are battling it out. Because Rick Scott was a third person, but it looks like he's not winning
Yeah.
the leadership. Uh, I think they're learning that they better listen to Trump and work with him as best they can. They may not agree with him, but I think politically they better be. Excuse me, they better be there. Because remember, in 2 years, I believe the bulk of senators up are
Yeah, they
Republicans.
are the third of because the Senate, a third of the Senate goes
There's a
up every
third
two
every two
years,
years.
and I agree with you. It does flip the other way, and But to your point, this isn't a mandate from Trump. This is a mandate from the people. This was a slaughter at the federal level. And I want to get into that a little bit. You look at the results. Electoral College, what was it? I think it's 312 is where it finished for Trump.
Well,
Uh,
they're not done yet,
but
but
they
it was over three. It was over three.
well, I think officially all that's left is Arizona, if I remember right.
The last thing that they're still battling it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so if he gets those 10, it's 312 or whatever it is, something like that, 315. Uh, these days, that's a
By
landslide.
the way, I picked 306. I just want to put that on the table.
I think I said, I forget what number I said. I said like 310. But anyway, uh, that these days, that's a landslide. You know, we were, some people were saying we were going to see Reagan 84. I knew that
But
was
you're
never,
not going to see that.
that's never going to happen again, right? This was a landslide. He took the popular vote by, last I saw, about 4 million. He's up. Uh,
Close to five,
Close to 5 now.
and
Yeah.
close to five between him and her. What? But again, we were talking before we started the show, and we just need to point this out right now. He's got a landslide. We turned out more voters than we've ever seen in a while.
Yeah.
Yet we have less votes going on than we did in 2020, with Biden with 81 million votes, which beat Obama by what, 10 million, 12 million votes. And Trump is doing a landslide at 75, 77 million when he finally gets done. And he's not hitting the 81. So,
Well, it's funny, Bill.
hmm,
I don't know if you've seen it, but somebody did a graph. They took, I think it was 08, 12, 16, 20, 24. Total vote for both candidates. And there is a monstrous outlier in 2020. Every other election, accounting for increase in population, they're right on par with each other, right? And then there's another 20 million votes out there in 2020. Um, One of the things that I hope Trump in some way does, yes, we want to turn the page on 2020, but we don't want to turn it completely, is get somebody to look into that. If that election, if those conspiracy theories that people have gotten blocked for 4 years are actually true, we need to know that. Um, if
when
for
you're speaking about, which I hear what you're saying, but while we're at it, we should give a lot of credit to the new RNC chair, Watley. I mean, if you want to look, he took what he did in North Carolina for Trump in 2020 and he put it in 27 states.
not
And
North
he's president.
Carolina though.
It worked in North Carolina. We delivered Trump again. Uh, it didn't work at the other levels, and we have to talk about that
We'll
somewhere
get to
down
that.
this road.
We'll get to that.
But Watley, what was critical in numbers, and even he made sure they all had lawyers on standing to do the watch every count going on. And I know, in for example, in North Carolina, the numbers were 100 on the road during election day and after, 50 at the headquarters waiting for calls if they should come in and need work, and another 70 on call. So they're ready.
Mm. And I mean, there were, I mean, relatively speaking, I have to be honest, there were relatively few shenanigans that I saw. The ones that were
Oh,
out
I
there were
agree.
pretty scary. I mean, firebombing voting boxes, that's not good, you know?
But again, not on the East Coast.
No, which was weird because why would you firebomb Portland's mailboxes or voter boxes? Oregon was going for Harris. They would vote for a C3PO. That's a code name for a person who likes children, Bill, just so you know. That, murdered a puppy in the middle of the street as long as they were a Democrat. I mean, why would you do it there of all places? But anyway, it's interesting to see that, as we look across the election, there, relatively speaking, I think most people, sane ones anyway, are going to say this was a legitimate election. And again, though,
Oh, I agree.
it speaks to we need to know what happened in 2020 because where did those 15, 20 million extra votes come from? Because not that many sat it out.
Well, but you got to also understand with Watley, again, not published. He filed 100 lawsuits in varying states, including North Carolina,
Mm.
and he's won the greater majority of them, which stopped some of the shenanigans that they were trying to pull. So again, Trump had put a game plan together, which was different than traditional
Oh,
elections. You
absolutely.
know, if you look at Trump 47, what he basically did, and that was a national plan, is he put his own people in every county in the country.
Mm.
and they reported directly to Trump, not through the county. And they got materials directly from Trump. He put out little awards for them to do X, Y, and Z. And I know a county commissioner who was really, really not happy by being put on the loop, but he put out of the loop. I can guarantee you, I know that guy real well. But it worked.
Who might it be, Bill? Um,
Could be my wife's husband.
you just gave it away. I was trying not to, but all right. Uh,
Facts are facts.
yeah, but
I didn't say if I was the
but
first or
again,
second.
this speaks to moving forward, right? Is I think one of the biggest things that Trump, the Republicans, and even the Democrats need to do is come together and say, look, yeah, we're battling it out, but we have to make sure the people believe in these elections. And I've
Well,
seen
I have
some
to give,
Democrats saying that too, which is
and I
encouraging.
think Biden's speech yesterday was actually decent. You know, he made his comments about coming together, and even though we didn't win, we're not defeated, but he did point out that we have to follow the Constitution. So his was a decent speech for him, and it was short because that's about the memory span he had to do it. But and he didn't get lost leaving the stage, which is also a good thing. But and he actually had more spring in his step than I've seen in a while. So I think
Oh,
he's
I can
looking
tell you
forward to
why. Because his candidate that he wanted to win won.
it.
I,
Probably
I
so.
I wish to God we could see how he voted. My prediction, my I would bet money both him and Jill voted for Trump. She wore a freaking red dress. Come on, the
Oh, I
optics on
saw that.
the
That was
optics that you cannot tell me that she didn't know she was doing that and her staff didn't point it out. Oh, give me a break. There is no way in hell that wasn't deliberate.
oh,
Masterful on her part, by the way. Um, I think Trump was going to win against Biden or Harris. I think, honestly, there's no way either one of them was going to win. But I do think Biden would have done better. And I think Jill, more than him, because he's not awake half the time, is pissed at what happened, at how it was basically a coup against him. And I think they got a little payback. That garbage statement. Joe slips a lot, but man, that one looked awful planned to me.
again, and the only ones whose speech I really didn't care for was eventually when Kamala
Well, she
decided to
finally
say,
showed up.
I mean, yeah, it didn't even speak to her supporters, which is really, shades of Hillary.
Oh, it's
Uh,
exactly the same as Hillary.
but her speech there was, "We're going to fight. We're going to fight, and we have to keep fighting, and we should fight. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't follow the Constitution while we're fighting."
Yeah,
Yeah.
the left are cheering that speech on. It shows how brilliant she was and how she should have been president. And I'm like, that was about as lame a speech as you could have. Now, I get it. Anyone who's conceding, they're down. I get it. But that she showed how unpresidential she was, even in that, and not having the balls, pun intended, to show up at 2 in the morning. Because I stayed up. I don't know how late you were up. I am an election geek. I stay up flipping channel. I wore my remote out, flipping between channels. I was up till about 3 a.m. Mostly because I wanted to see. It was well. You know what? We got to take a break. Let's take the break. Come back. I want to talk about the media coverage of the election.
Okay.
All right. So
So, people, hang in there. This is Reclaiming America, and we're talking about election 2024. Well, everybody, welcome back to Reclaiming America as we review the November election 2024, and we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly.
I'm the
So
good.
right now, the ugly's on your screen.
I'm the good.
I'm not even going there.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's talk media. And like I said before, we
The,
went.
the dead media or the
They're
new
done.
media, which is the non-traditional social media.
And you and I have had discussions about this. Even now, you
Yes, we
admit
did.
MSNBC, CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, they might as well fold all their news organizations because they're done. Stick a fork in them. They are done.
And
And
they can take MSNBC and all their little cable runs with them.
so, like we were talking about, I stayed up it was about 5:03 when I went to bed because I geek out on this stuff, and I at times was laughing so hard I had tears in my eyes because, and we were talking off air. I used to watch NBC back in the day when Tim Russert was on. I just thought he was really good, and so I mostly watched NBC, but I was flipping through all of them, watching the coverage, and I'm like, oh dear God. Now, understand, some of it is for ratings, right? Because they don't want to call the race. They want to keep you watching as long as they can. But we were talking about Pennsylvania. It was called online at about 10 o'clock. It was out on Twitter that Trump had taken Pennsylvania. NBC didn't announce it till 2 a.m. They waited till they had 95% of the vote in before. Well, we're not sure. It could, he's up by 200,000, but if every vote comes in for him in these two areas of Philadelphia, she might pull it out. They were stretching this, and I was dying. I'm like, you MFers, who are you kidding? They just couldn't do it.
Well, this was deja vu when Hillary was the de facto winner in 2020.
Oh, it wasn't quite that good because I remember that one too. That was about the same time frame. But you sit there and you're like, this is how they have no credibility, Bill. Is that
But
everybody knew Trump had won basically by about midnight.
oh yeah, it was over.
It was over. Why not just come out and say it? Now, I understand the rating side of it, but you had the Senate still to cover because the Senate was still up in question. The House still is. But you sit there and you watch them, and if you're any kind of an intelligent person, you can see how full of shit they are. Because the way
Well,
they
actually,
were.
but the more fun is watching the last few days with their rationale why they won.
Oh my God.
That that's where the book under Fantasy Island,
Well,
fiction. Put it 101 in the library.
did you watch The View at all?
No, but I heard about
Oh,
it.
that was Can't Miss TV. Oh my God. Those women are so racist, it isn't, and sexist, it isn't funny. I don't remember their names. There's the black woman calling
Joy.
what? No, she's the white one. I know her. There's a black woman. I think it's Sunny or something like that. Some name like that. But anyway, calling white women who voted for Trump stupid and uneducated. Literally said it. And I'm like, one, how do you say something like that on national TV? And two, who is your audience? Men aren't watching The View, Bill. I was like,
It's the stupid and educated white women. You know that.
oh my God. I was sitting there watching it, and then, black men, how dare they? And,
They're all
and
misogynistic,
trashing them. And I'm like, you
and the
racist.
Hispanic men do.
And oh, then they went off. That was they had a special thing for them. And I'm like, I was dying. And I'm sitting there going, do they not see how they are showing how racist and sexist they are? They don't, to be honest with you. And their core, the left base, doesn't. But this is why they lost the election. Is
And something else that came out that's really very important. We see how important endorsements are from celebrities.
well, with one exception, Joe Rogan. Don't think
Yeah, but
his
he's more.
endorsement didn't have an effect. It did.
Yeah, but that's more of a journalistic podcast. I'm talking about these
Mainstream.
new
Yeah.
Hollywood people.
Was it Christina, whatever her name is there, and J Lo. J Lo was great. Watching her cry. Oh, poor thing.
You heard now they turned on George Clooney.
I have not heard that. What happened to George?
They went after George because they blame him for forcing Biden out. So
What?
had Biden stayed, it had been a different election.
Oh dear God.
So Clooney's getting beat in every direction over that.
And it shows you how they will turn on somebody like
Oh,
that.
absolutely.
And again, if I'm the Democratic Party, the chair and all that, I have to have a serious sit down with myself, first of all. Every Democrat should be. But as a party and go, we really effed this up. All right? And we have for basically 10 years now. And if we keep going the way we're going, we're not going to have a party. And yet, understanding it's only a few days after the election, a little soul searching would be appropriate already. They're not. They're playing the blame game across the board.
Well, it's almost like the 5 stages of grieving. Right now they're in the blame, and it's you died, you had
Fair
no
point.
business leaving your routine. Somewhere down the road, some of the more intelligent groups, they're going to sit and go, maybe our priorities are wrong. Maybe we should start listening to the average person and see what they really want. That would be nice. Or maybe they should just listen to Trump.
But this isn't even about Trump, Bill, because
No, but it's his policies. They're based
it's
on what
not.
the
I
average
don't even
person
think it's
wants.
that. I'll be honest with you. I'm not saying that doesn't play a role. I think this election, more than anything else, was a rejection of wokeism. I really
That's
do.
probably true. I'd accept that. I would.
It's men, and I will tell you, I talk to hundreds of men a day. Men are done with it all, and they spoke. And I've been telling you off air, and I will tell you right now, if the Republican Party doesn't do something to address men's issues, I will destroy them in 26. I am going to hold them accountable. We're already putting our plans together behind the scenes. It's not saying we're not expecting them to change everything, but you look at things like VAWA, Violence Against Women Act. There is no Violence Against Men Act. Give us some money for that. Let us get some shelter. There are 2 shelters in the entire United States for men. 2. There are 2,000 for women. Can I have one in each state? Is that too much to ask?
Evidently.
It is. Up till now, it evidently has been. Do you know how much money that would cost? If I had to put in 50 shelters, roughly it's a $500,000 to $1 million to open one.
Yeah,
So
which they call chump change.
$50 million. How many billions have we sent to Ukraine?
Well, they've already said, don't you remember when they found $6 billion missing and they said it wasn't worth chasing?
Give me $50 million. I will put one shelter in every state. We already have the plan. And there's a friend of mine is trying to get one open in Atlanta, Georgia. He's been rebuffed at the state level, he's been rebuffed at the local level, and he's been rebuffed at the federal level. We don't have the money. Really? You funded $1 billion for the women's shelters, and I don't want one penny taken away from that. And that's just one example. You want to talk about boys' education, right? You want to talk about what black men need. I have a guy coming on my other podcast to talk about that. His group is huge. Not one of them voted for Harris. I mean, this is game changing, and the Republican Party better wake the F up on it.
Don't you think they bought, here's $20,000 in your own pot store?
No, I mean, good Lord.
I just couldn't
Well, it's
believe it
funny
was that.
because, I do another show live, which is called Boy Meets Squirrel on Wednesdays. And my co-host is Lindsay and I on that. We don't do politics on that. We ended up doing 3 out of the last 5 weeks politics because of the uproar. And I got to give full credit where it's due. Black and Hispanic men were the ones uproaring, not the white men, right? It was mind-boggling. To the point we were like, because I was talking with Lindsay, like, what are we going to talk about this week? I'm like, we have to talk about the election because I'm getting thousands of men reaching out to me. This is a game changer. And that is as much a rejection of wokeism and the Democratic Party's focus on women's rights. And the Republican Party has a unique opportunity here. We don't take one thing away from women, not one thing. But you damn well better do something for the men. And if they don't, 2026, I'll be the first one to go blue right down the line. And it's just interesting to see. I don't know the exact numbers right now, but as I was looking at it, I was looking at individual states, primarily the swing ones. Black men were 15 to 20% voting for Trump. It's normally 6 to 8. That is a monumental swing. Hispanic,
And it's only going to get, and if they do what they promised, it's going to get bigger.
Hispanic. Oh, we've talked about before the Latino vote. I almost said Latinx. Ooh, that would have been bad.
Yeah.
The Latin vote. which the Democratic Party's been inputting 20 million people to guarantee their elections, most of them Latin. Oh, how's that going to work out for them now? Because I have that number right in front of me. 46% of them voted for Trump. Oops.
And 55% of them ended.
Yeah. Oops.
Well, again, you're looking at values, family values, religious values, which tend to tie to the Republicans if they use the power to do that they have to take care of their people. And I think I'm with you in that they need to come back and prove that they've earned this right. And they can't just say, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z and do shit. Okay. They've got to come out shooting. They got to support Trump. And guess what? They actually need some ideas of their own.
All right. Yeah, guess what? We're a little early for break, but let's take it now because I want to come back and talk about exactly that. What's the next steps? At both for Trump and for the party, both parties, by the way. Sound good?
Okay. Here.
All right, take us
All
away.
right. Reclaiming America, Part 3 coming back, and more about election 2024. Stay tuned. Reclaiming America, Part 3. We're still talking about the election of 2024 in November and what it means, but now we're going to project forward, aren't we, sir?
Yes, what's next steps, Bill? So I'm going to let you take the floor and say where you think the first or next steps, what they should be.
Well, under the assumption that the Republicans get both houses at the national
Let's go
level.
ahead with that assumption because I think it's a fairly safe one at this point.
Yeah, it's not there, but I think I agree with
Yeah.
you. It's going to be tight. It maybe they may get as many as one or two extra, but not much.
Right.
Under that assumption, they very quickly have to do two things. They have to, number one, support getting the Trump agenda going and making sure that what he wants then, the first thing first is let's make sure we do not lose those tax cuts that are a year from expiring, which is problem number one.
Okay.
Number two, they got to be working on the immigration issue. Three, they can't get into Musk's way when Musk starts cleaning government.
Oh,
And he's going to have that committee to just clean it up and send people away. The Senate needs to confirm all of his appointments quickly and fairly. What should become an interesting problem is the Senate before what happens, because Sotomayor is an issue. And if you haven't heard it yet, she's become an issue because the Dems are now forcing this 70-year-old woman to consider retiring. And there's some talk whether her health is good or not. And I'm not sure, to be honest. But I know at 70, she's got a lot of years left. She can be functional. But they're trying to force her to leave because they want to put Kamala there and make her a Supreme Court justice.
It's bad
She
enough that
who
they
has
put Brown in.
trouble. Can you imagine something she wrote with the word salad it would read? Or asking a question.
She'd be cackling every 5 minutes.
Or trying to question a lawyer about some issue that's in front of them. She would have no clue as to what's going on.
Oh, dear God, no.
And unfortunately, she'd be there for life. And she's only 60 years old. So we don't need that. So there is some talk that there's not enough time to make it happen. But that's something we need to be watching long term.
If they want it to happen, they can make it happen.
No, that's what the Republicans need to be doing. They need to follow through on what they promised.
Yeah.
They need to reward, and I don't use this negatively, not by punishing somebody else, but by taking care of the people that put them there. Okay. For example, we talked offline. This was a men's operation that basically put him in there with some support from women, obviously. But, the men around the country are a little bit sick of all the garbage going on, and they want some things fixed. They don't want their daughters in bathrooms with guys. They don't want their daughters playing against guys in sports. And they better start taking some actions to deal with that on a national level. Or otherwise, in 2 years, we already know that the midterms are traditionally with one house loses and it goes to the other house there to begin with. So if they have any hopes of holding on, they have to deliver. And we talked earlier about, and I think you should really discuss it in some detail, about men's shelters.
Well, it's again, that needs to be addressed. Let me just step back first. first things I think they need to do, and you touched on it, is get the cabinet in place as quickly as possible. I'm hopeful that Trump will name everybody he wants prior to January 20th. And I'm hoping on January 20th at 12:01, the Senate starts meeting and confirming them all, you know.
Wait a minute, they come back on January 5th.
Yes, but they can't confirm until he's elected or inaugurated, sorry. Isn't that true?
No, they can start the hearings.
Then get it done then, right? So because traditionally there's usually a lag of a few months, 3 to 5, right? To get everything in place. Trump doesn't have that kind of time. Everybody keeps saying he's got 4 years. He's got 2 to get anything
He's
done.
got 18 months
Because
that last 6 months is election
yeah,
time.
I even disagree with you there. Because the 2026 election started at 3:01 a.m. last Tuesday night.
Yeah, but you've got to remember that traditionally, 6 months out from election, that's all the Congress worries about.
That's
You know,
what
so
that's
you're not
what
going to get.
Congress worries about. The people, on the other hand, are already in election mode.
But if so, he's got 18 months to get what he wants done.
And we don't have a second to waste. And you got to look at what's the priorities of his agenda. Number one, getting the economy fixed. I mean, that's hands down the number one issue. Immigration is two, right? So, and again, to fix those issues, he's got to have his people in place to do that. So,
Speaking on that, though, I
yeah.
was listening to a gentleman today who had some interesting points. When he starts the deportation, which is going to happen, and there's going to be howling and screaming when that happens.
Oh well.
So well, we'll survive. It's going to have a bouncing effect that nobody's thought about. Once the illegals are shipped out, and I hate to use that term, but it's true, it's going to start taking the pressure off housing.
Oh, it's going to have a monumental shift. Oh, absolutely.
And it's going to have two things are going to happen. More housing will be available for people, and that's going to bring the prices down, not only for renting, but buying. Because right now, you can rent a place out for 3 times what you can sell it for on a monthly basis. You're going to rent it, especially the feds, because the feds pay, they don't care what they pay. They will give you any dollars they want just to get the place. So I think that's going to help the housing market bounce back when this happens. And no one's considered it.
And that'll be a quick one, right? I mean, housing market will change rapidly. Trump will put a bunch of executive orders out. Drill, baby, drill, probably day one. Which again affects energy. Lower energy costs mean lower prices. He talked about the tariffs. We could do a whole show on the tariffs and income tax, maybe we should. He needs to implement them quick. The things that he can do, I no doubt he's going to do, but he
day
does.
one, he's going to sign. What's the bet? He signs 24 executive orders day one.
Oh, I would double that probably.
It could be.
But again, I'm not the biggest fan of governing that way because let's say a Democrat gets in 28, we just go back and forth ping-ponging executive orders. I wish they would get rid of that, to be honest with you. Let's let Congress do their job.
It undoes what Biden's executive
I understand that. Let him do it, but then let's get safeguards in place.
Then let's fix it permanently.
But
by law rather than something by decree.
Congress needs to step up and take some action of their own. This can't be all Trump, right? Like you were talking about the shelters. One of the issues that I talk about all the time, there are 2 shelters in the entire United States for men. I want one in every state. I've talked to people in North Carolina. The legislature won't even listen to me. Okay, we don't have the funding. You got 10 million or billion, right, sitting in the bank. You can't give me $1 million to put a shelter in Raleigh? You're going to make me swear, Bill. Give me an effing break, okay? But at the federal level, again, pick your issue. That's one issue. I don't care. Just do something right off the bat, right? Some small thing even to send a message. We heard you, electorate, right? Give women in sports. Tulsi's all over that right now. She's touring the country addressing that. Give that to them week 1.
Oh, I agree. Give them. You're absolutely correct. Give them for example, sign your executive orders and immediately have some effect on the border. Deal with women in sports, which can be done a number of ways, and especially if the House and Senate are in our control, they can pass a bill
Hmm.
quick on the president's desk, and it's done. And we have the Supreme Court to make sure it stays that way.
That's
You know,
that's what
peace
they.
in place.
It's those quick wins because then the electorate's going to step back and go, okay, you heard us, right?
Now we'll give you time to do the rest.
Now the more serious issues, because fixing the economy is not going to happen in a month. It's going to take a couple of years, right? It'll happen. I have no doubt it'll happen, but it's going to take a couple of years. And the media is going to be all over. Well, Trump said he was going to bring the price of eggs down, and here we are 16 months in, and it's still blah, blah, blah. It won't be, but you get my meaning. But if he's got enough in the bank as a wins, not just Trump, though, I want Congress to do something. Show a little effing balls for the first time in 50 years and get some small things done. Small but important. You know, pick your battle, whatever it is. There's plenty of them out there. Because if they do what they've done, we're going to hold hearings. If they start holding hearings, Bill, it's over with.
Speaking about holding hearings, a little bit of a takeoff again. What do you think is going to happen with both Trump's cases in the courts and Biden's son's case?
Oh, you want my prediction? Well, Jack
Yeah.
Smith's already dropped his. I don't know if you know that.
Oh yeah, I know he's
Yep.
he's history.
That case is gone. So that leaves New York and D.C.
And Georgia, I believe.
Georgia's done. I mean, it's done, but in all but name only. New York's going to be the one, and I think the Supremes will rule on that before he gets elected or inaugurated.
Well, actually, their Court of Appeals is kind of
They're
indicating,
waiting on that.
yeah, and it looks like they're leaning Trump's way by
Oh,
just the way they.
did you listen to that?
Yes, I did.
Oh my God! It was I was like I had a cup of coffee in my hand because it was on YouTube, and I'm listening and I'm going, "This is New York. Every one of those judges is a left wing Democrat, and they buying it. I think the Court of Appeals will dump it in the next week or so. They weren't going to do it before the election because they didn't want to be accused of affecting the election. If
That's safe. That's a fair
if
statement.
they
By the way,
don't,
speaking about that, what about Letitia and the governor who claim they're going to have to fight to defend their state?
well, we were talking before you started the show. New York, last I checked, was about 1.1 million difference. Trump would have won the state, and I have good friends that are in the political world in New York, and two of them have said to me if Trump had made any effort, he would have won the state. He really didn't put any effort in. He did Madison Square Garden. Look what happened there, right?
Oh yeah, you think?
He would have absolutely taken the state, they believe. And you look at Hochul, and Letitia James is probably going to get disbarred. I think they're going to. Hochul is in scrambling mode right now because they look like idiots. So again, I think the New York case, if it doesn't get tossed by New York, and I wouldn't be shocked if Hochul says, "I'm going to pardon him." Don't be surprised to see that.
Well, what about the possibility of Biden pardoning both him
I don't see that one. I
and his son?
I will tell you who's going to pardon Hunter. Trump is.
That could be.
He's going to say, for the good of the country, I'm going to
Uh,
pardon him.
yeah, Allah, what happened to Nixon?
A la what happened to Hillary. Remember how they were talking about, and he said this on Joe Rogan's podcast. I don't know if you watched that whole show. I did.
I have not seen the whole thing.
You need to go watch it for real. Because Trump said, I was the one who said, no, we're not prosecuting Hillary, even though I talked about it a lot.
That I knew. I've heard that
Because
before.
it was for the good of the country. And I wish he had prosecuted Hillary, don't get me wrong.
Well,
But I
Ford came
understand it.
out and when Ford pardoned Nixon for the good of the country,
Yeah. Um,
and that was one of the things that shot himself in the foot for the future.
I,
That and getting a helicopter.
I think there's a decent chance Trump pardons Hunter Biden, and I'm okay with it if he does. If it's done for the reason he's talking about, which we're going to turn the page on all this crap for the last 4 years. Let's move forward. Stop looking back. That's another thing I want Trump to be doing, and the Republicans.
Yeah, but that's good. That's not going to play well in Peoria
It's not going to
because
play well with their base. Let's be honest, right? They want blood. Let's be
yeah,
honest.
they want someone held accountable.
I mean, I'll tell you the first thing Trump needs to do is pardon every January 6er. Every,
I would, I
every,
would. That would send a message up front.
the very first executive order he does should be that. And it will, all they'll be all holy hell will break loose. But it needs to be done. We should not be putting grandmas whose only crime, if you will, was to walk around the people's house waving a flag in prison.
And was invited in many cases by the police that was standing there.
Let's move past that, right? Pardon them and move on. Um, Again, it's about sending the message. We're turning the page here. We're done with this because the one thing I think that Trump has that nobody else does, because he's got 4 years and he's done,
Right.
is he can do any effing thing he wants. And there is
And
nobody to stop him because he's got the people behind him.
and there's no repercussions about another election.
Right.
He doesn't have to worry about another
So
election.
let's get some of this. Get rid of the Hunter Biden thing. Because
That might be what you just brought up might be the best and quickest way to send the message to everybody that
exactly.
uh, you know, the world is changing and we heard you. But here we're going to start with January 6th and everybody involved is pardoned and let's make it go
We're
away.
not going to do political persecutions like the Biden Harris administration did. Send that message day one. That doesn't mean we don't hold people accountable. Right? One of the things that I'm hoping with Elon, I know he's focused on the economy, fixing, the budget. I hope he also gets involved with fixing social media because no one is more qualified to address that than him. Right?
Yeah,
Section
but I don't know if it's going to be in his charge.
not directly, but if he gets it out there and goes, we're repealing Section 230, which gives all these social medias the ability to do the censorship, that's a step. Section 230 needs to go. It's been in place since the 90s. It's so outdated, it's ridiculous. And it allows TikTok and all of them to censor people. We're not going to allow that. It's going to become what Twitter is, wide open with community
Is
notes.
that the same one that if that goes, it also puts them eligible to be sued?
Yes. And so why shouldn't they be, Bill?
Well, I'm not arguing. I'm just
Right?
asking.
Again, that sends a message right off the bat. How Elon's going to play with that, I don't know. But our good Senator Tom Tillis is sitting on the freaking committee that controls it. What are you going to do, Tommy boy? You got 2 more years in office before you're gone.
And then he's not running again from all indications.
Oh, well, I think he's gone either way because he's no.
From all indications are he's not
Yeah.
going to do another.
But I think these are good first steps, and I hope Trump. He's already putting a Democrat in Kennedy. I hope he puts some more in. I love his choice for chief of staff. Putting a
Yeah,
woman
she's a good one.
that sent a message right off the bat. What do you mean I'm
Right to
anti-woman?
Mark Cuban.
I'm afraid of strong women. And her, did you hear her first thing? I will
No.
be controlling access to the president. Okay, okay, that's a pretty strong woman to me. Um,
It sounds to me that we should send a resume to Mark Cuban.
oh, I hope she invites him in to talk. I mean, oh, they've already savaged him. He's hiding with his tail tucked between his legs. Tulsi eviscerated him. Nikki Haley did too. But again, that was a message being sent. How can you say I'm an anti-woman when I just put a woman in? I would argue the most powerful position because she controls
Probably.
who talks to Trump.
Yep. She's the funnel.
She's it. She's the wall. He built his first wall. Okay. And then immigration's the other one that he's got to go. And I know he's going to day one with the executive orders, but Congress needs to do their part. Pass right off whatever funding they need to build that wall. Do it.
Oh, we're not arguing. Now, what do we talk a little bit about what people need to do? What do the Democrats need to do?
Oh, let's talk about that. Well, one, they need to eat a little crow. A little humility might go a long way right now.
That I agree. And stop the blame game.
And I want to give some credit, and I don't remember her name. She was on, I believe it was NBC, but she's an ex representative. And she basically, and I'm paraphrasing what she said, we need to stop doing what we're doing and do a little soul searching because clearly our message is wrong. And it is, right? They are so far out in the weeds. Now, we've talked about this before. I think this is what, in some cases, this is what some of the Democrats wanted. Because there's no way now you can make the argument that they need to stay the course. They lost at every level except North Carolina. Uh, we're gonna go long today because I want to talk about that. I think their first step, and they're not doing it, is to step back and go, you know what, we were wrong, and that's the hardest step. How they fix it, Bill, at this point, I don't know.
Well, the big question is also going to become who becomes the de facto leader, because at this particular point, it's not going to be Biden, it's not going to be Harris.
I'm thinking it's going to be Hakeem Jeffries. That's who I would put out.
I'm thinking what I'm hearing is it may be Newsom.
Either one of those choices would be a disaster for them
Yeah, but I'm
because they're
hearing Newsom is the one stepping forward to be their de
well, he
facto leader
wants
while
that,
they rebuild.
right? But again, he's a far left woke politician. So is Jeffries. They cannot go that route. If they go that route, and the Republicans don't f it up like they usually do, they got the
You mean
next
like they did
16
with
years.
Donald?
Forget Trump. They got the next two elections after that. There'll be a Republican president until 36 or whatever it is, 30, 28, 32. Yeah, 36. Um, if I'm the Democrat, if I was the chairman of the Democratic Party, the first thing I would be doing is getting everybody together and go, we've got to change. And they need new leadership. Who that is, I don't know. But if they make it Newsom or Whitmer or Hakeem Jeffries or Schumer becomes the voice, because Chucky's not going to go away quietly, trust me.
Or Walz.
Or, oh God, Walz couldn't even carry his own county.
Yeah, I heard that. I laughed about that.
We were talking about the media earlier. I'm sitting there at 2 a.m. watching Minnesota not be called. How does that happen, Bill? About as liberal a state as there is, probably more liberal than California, with their governor
And
running.
with their governor running,
And they
it's a big
still
party.
couldn't call it. They called Pennsylvania first. I was dying. But yeah, I mean, well, what are your thoughts? What do you think the Democrats need to do?
I think they do a lot of soul searching, but the problem is they need to reach out and bring back some of the more moderate Democrats because they've all left. The only people left there for the most part are the hard left people, and they're so much an ideologue. They're not going to change much. Uh, I don't see them changing an awful lot without more influx of more moderates. Uh, to do that, they need to look back and say, all right, what does the working class people, the average Joe in this stage, or Jane, whatever you want to pick,
Mm-hmm.
what do they want? What are their values? And we need to support that. And until they do that, they're not going to change anything.
So
My best line is you talk about including more Democrats into the White House. I have a solution for you for AOC. She can be the bartender at the inauguration.
I don't know if she's even qualified for that.
Well, she went to bartender school and she's such a bright woman. But until they make a disconcerted effort to bring more moderates back in the party, and that's one of the problems. And if you go back to the Republican Party, that's one of the problems the Republicans have to face also. They're supposed to be a Big Ten operation, and they are. But they also have to realize that as part of that Big Tent, there's going to be opposing views.
Mhm.
And they have to find a way to address, and find common ground for everyone to move forward. The Democrats don't have that problem because there's only one view in their tent.
And they're
They kicked out anybody else who
and to
didn't
be
have
fair,
that
it worked for them up until this past Tuesday.
because they overplayed their hand.
Yeah, they went too far
Not that
with
the
it.
Republicans were brilliant; they overplayed their hand.
Yeah, oh, the Democrats lost this election. The Republicans didn't win it, in my opinion. Now that said, Trump did a masterful job running. because he did run. He
Absolutely.
did not run as a Republican, a typical Republican.
No, he ran as a coalition,
Yeah, he
basically,
did.
and he put a coalition together to get elected under the Republican Party. But to keep those people, the party itself has to understand, that, you've got, for example, there are pro-lifers that don't want to deal with anything.
Hmm.
They can't kill a baby. You got the other side that wants some level of it. I think for example, North Carolina's view is probably the most sensible approach, which is 12 weeks.
12, and again, we've talked about it before. 12 to 15 is my number.
Yeah. And if that's 3 months in time, and generally you're pregnant or not, it's not a matter that is, the 6 weeks is too short that some people are pushing
Yeah,
because
that's too.
it doesn't work.
That's ridiculous to me.
But they need to address things like that and figure out both sides of the house. They also need to, when they're going to be looking at immigration, the first thing they need to concentrate on, and I hope they're smart enough to do it, is go after the criminals, the people who are in jails already, the people that have come back 4 or 5 times, and start throwing them out. Okay, start moving them out, and if they start also pushing businesses to check who they're hiring,
Hmm.
some of these people will self-deport and they'll go back from whence they
I
came.
hadn't really thought about that. Yeah, that's a good point.
If they can simply say, all right, you need to e-verify, for want of a term,
Mhm.
all your employers are accept, or in
You mean
fact,
if they do what
U.S.
they're actually supposed to do?
Yeah,
Because that,
and if they make them do that, and suddenly the jobs are drying up, then there'll be a percentage that self-deports and saves the issue because they'll take their family with them.
I hadn't really thought about that, to be honest with you. I think again, if you enforce the law, so to speak, by saying, I owned a small business, I had employees. You have to get their identities. You got to verify all this stuff. You can't just accept anything. If we just get to that, that's going to trigger a concern amongst those who are here illegally, and yeah, they may self-deport at that point. I.
And not only that, but you also need to go after, my son is a contractor, okay?
Mm,
And his problem is with competing is he does people legally. He hires legal people and he has to go through the entire operation to pay them and all the expenses that come with
you mean he gives
filing
Americans
insurance.
jobs, Bill? How dare he?
He gives anybody that's legal job. They don't have to
That's what
be
I'm saying.
American. They can be,
I mean, how
but
dare he?
but competing against the $100 a day on the corner,
Yep.
if you force businesses not to do that, again, it helps with the self-deporting.
And again, that helps the economy. And what'll happen with something like that is you will see a bump up in inflation because of the raise, because they're going to have to pay the employees more. But long term, it'll come down and then some. And oh, by the way, you're giving Americans good jobs that way. So,
And by the way, they're going to pay taxes.
and they're et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right, we only have a few more minutes. I cannot let North Carolina go, Bill. So for
And what would you like to talk
So
about,
for
sir?
those of you in other parts of the country watching this, you still want to pay attention because as magnificent as the Republicans did at the federal level, as outstanding, I don't think they were perfect campaigns, but they did a pretty damn good job at the federal level. The Republican Party was the Republican Party in North Carolina. Y'all blew it. You turned the state purple. Okay? Three main races: governor, Democrat; lieutenant governor, Democrat; attorney general, Democrat; supermajority, gone. That may change. It's up in question.
That's still up in the air, but it does not look good. Uh,
Defend yourselves.
yeah, because I think in the long run, what killed three of those people was an association with the
Yeah.
governor, lieutenant
And
governor
I
running for
completely agree
governor,
with you, by the way.
and they lit, and you talk about Robinson being a good man. I think he is a good man. The question was he got nailed on some things that, as I would tell people, he said something 20 years ago that they're quoting. How many times would you like to go back 20 years ago and find out what you said that
And
was
even if
stupid?
we don't even know if that's actually true either. And that's the problem.
No, we don't know if it's true, but even if it is true, How many times have you said something stupid from 20 years ago that you would take back now after in second thought? And you people change.
See, I
But unfortunately, they buried him on it. And in the case of the lieutenant governor and in the case of the attorney general, they rightly or wrongly tied themselves to the governor's race. And therefore, if he wasn't going to make it, nobody's going to make it. And I will give you an example in the county I'm work in and live in and help run occasionally. Uh, we are known for turning out the vote in large numbers, and very much pro Republican. In our county, Robinson didn't win, which
and
is
when you
amazing.
told me that, it blew me away. Because if there's any county that he should have won, it was that one, your county,
Yeah, yeah,
and it wasn't even close, right?
3,000 votes.
Which to me is, I mean, considering they voted for Stein, and
But again, you're looking in a county that only had about 100 and maybe 114,000 voters total.
so 3-ish% difference,
Three, two and a three,
three, yeah,
three
somewhere in
percent.
there.
That look,
But
yeah,
again,
and,
that
and
it doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot.
but when you start looking at the other two, we gave them pluralities of almost 20,000
That's my
votes.
point. That's where I was going. Is the swing the other way for example, Dan Bishop, who was on this show. Dan Bishop's a terrific man.
Yep,
I'm genuinely sad he didn't win. I don't.
as I am with Weatherman.
Yeah, and I don't think either one of them ran a good campaign. You know, Jeff Jackson, who ultimately became AG, owned Dan Bishop in the media. Again, primarily on social media. Same thing with, I forget the woman's name that is the lieutenant governor now, owned them on social media. They did not. I think the mistake they made, one was tying the party made. I'm going to be specific, not the individual candidate. The party, one, I think they took for granted that Robinson was going to win in the spring. Even you and I were there. You know, this is his to lose, and he did a magnificent job at losing it. I think his ego came into play, if I may say so. I did not vote for Robinson. I did not vote for Stein either. I voted Libertarian in that. And the reason is I could never vote for Stein. But I couldn't vote for Robinson, Bill. And it had nothing to do with what happened 20 years ago, potentially. I saw him as his ego is so massive.
Well, I will tell you from my viewpoint, and I did vote for the man. Okay, I did vote for all three of them. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I'm proud I did.
I did vote for the other two, by the way. Yeah.
Uh, but one of the problems was in most of his run, he was out there. I'll come to your place if you can put 1,500 people together. I'll
Ego.
come to your place. I'll come to this place if you can raise $6,000 for a person to attend, up to $6,000 for a
Ego.
private home. And you know, I will tell you this, with the exception of a couple of private home events where he made some dollars from it from some of the wealthier people in our county, uh, he did not make an appearance in Brunswick.
And I don't think he made an appearance in my county at all, did he?
Oh, he was in Brunswick. He was in New Hanover
Was
several
he?
times.
I never.
But
But here's the thing. There's your answer, Bill.
many of the times he was doing the private thing again.
I never knew he was here. There's your answer right there. Because I would have said he never came here, and I did just say it. How
Well, he
do
was there, and because I was getting, I was reacting, going, "Well, he can go, but he can't cross the bridge."
well, I mean, think about this though. I'm involved in politics. I pay attention to it, and I didn't know he was here. If I don't know, you think Jane or John Doe knew he was here? Not a chance.
And I also think he was shot down when Trump stepped back away from him.
Which was smart of Trump to do in the long run, right? You know,
Malone,
we were talking like I genuinely believe that Robinson cost Dan Bishop and Weatherman their seats because it was close
I
enough,
agree.
and I think he dragged Trump down. Trump won the state by
Well,
two-ish. I think Trump would have got it by 4 or 5. I really do believe that. You might think I'm crazy, but I
I
genuinely,
don't know if we're ever going to be that close with the Democrats in some of the bigger cities. But
I
I
think
will say that Trump's stepping back from him was a message that a lot of people heard.
me included, by the way.
and they, especially if you were a MAGA supporter, your primary goal was to vote for Trump. Okay. Anybody after that he supported. And you can see the differences in the other candidates, in spite of the fact that he didn't support there. The other candidates got a lot of the votes that Robinson didn't get
Uh,
because
but again,
because
it goes
Trump
to
did not support him.
right.
And I understand why Trump didn't support him, because at this particular point, the accusations out there would have dragged Trump down.
Exactly, and that's where again you got to go to the party on this and say now, mind you, he was lieutenant governor for 4 years. Where was the vetting in 2020 by the Republican? By the way, did the Democrats have this and hold it all that time? I'm curious, because I think that what came out that he allegedly did 20 years ago did a lot of damage to him.
Well, I think someone started researching him for serious when he ran for governor.
It,
I also got to tell you, though, you've got to remember, all things being equal, party does not pick candidates. Primaries do.
yes, but they decide who. Come on, we all know who they're going to throw their support behind the scenes to certain
Well, that
candidates.
doesn't mean that they won't say, he's my guy,
Right,
but
that's
it's
my
still
point.
unfortunately,
Anybody can run.
In North Carolina, if you can get a 20% turnout on a primary day, you're doing very, very well.
Yeah,
And the reality is it's normally around 15 plus
and
or
he
minus.
won the primary handily. We have to say that.
No issue.
Uh, and again, you and I'll speak for myself. I don't want to speak for you. In the spring, I wholeheartedly supported Robinson. I did up until about late August. And then I started having my doubts because of his ego. He
No.
thought that he had this in the bag. His whole campaign, and this is the reason I'm saying, and I'm bringing this up. We're talking about North Carolina, but this applies nationwide because Republicans do this all the time. They take for granted certain votes, and Robinson did, and he was on the defense. Stein ran a brilliant campaign. He had Robinson on the defensive basically from May on. Robinson never got out front and talked about issues until the very last week of the election.
The only thing that helped Robinson at any state, and I hate to say it this way, was the destruction in the northwest part of the county, the state, because he was
That's
there.
a fair
He
point.
was the only one on the ground, and he's the only one that showed up caring. That helped him.
I
Now, I
think
will
it
tell
did.
you, and I will tell you, I voted for the man, but I didn't vote. At this point, I kind of agree with my concerns with him, but I voted from the viewpoint that we needed a Republican governor to work with a Republican General Assembly and hopefully a Republican Attorney General. So I voted for the position, not necessarily the man at that point.
And I voted for the Libertarian for that reason as
So
well.
you threw your vote away.
I was one of 3%. No, I don't see you consider me throwing my vote away. I do not.
I don't mind a protest vote if the protest
Not even a
has a
protest vote.
chance of doing something.
I vote. I voted for that person, and you can call me out because I don't remember their name. Okay, because of the libertarian principles on that. I voted down ballot. I voted for a lot of libertarians. Not that they were going to, and I know ahead of time they're not going to win, but I cannot get behind people that I don't support. And Robinson, I just didn't support. My local congressman, I cannot stand the guy. I voted for the Democrat. You would call it a protest vote. I call it as I was voting on the issues because my congressman does not stand for the issues that I care about. All right. He stands for shipping as much money overseas so that it can get back to him. All right. He's voted for sending money overseas while telling me, a small business owner, that he can't help me because that would raise inflation. That's why I voted for the Democrat. Time will tell on all this. So we're way over, and that's okay, but we got to start wrapping things up. Any final thoughts? I know you're looking at your phone, so what's going on?
Yeah, I am. I'm trying to find out exactly what that percentage was for him. I want to find out who the uh,
For who?
I just got to look for one thing. Then talk for a second.
Well, all right. While you're doing that, so one of I'll give you my main takeaway from the election is that democracy won.
Mike Ross is who you voted for.
That's who it is. Now, as soon as you said the name, and he got 3%, if I remember right.
Yes, he had 174,000 votes,
and I'm proudly one of them.
Out of the 6 million approximately that
what
were
was
voted.
his percentage? About 3, right?
3.15.
And if all of those votes had gone for Robinson, he still wouldn't have won. But my final thought, and then I'll get yours, is democracy won this election. If nothing else, democracy won. Elections matter. They do count. I think the people got through all the rancor. They got through all the bullshit. They got through the media feeding them pablum that they thought they needed to hear. And the people stood up and said, enough's enough. This is what we want. And if we take nothing else away from this election, I don't care whether your candidate won or not. I honestly believe that the United States, as far as that goes, is back.
And I agree with you. I think that this election was so important that we lost it. The United States was lost. As we know, it would have been gone forever. Yep. So I'm glad that happened. I would also just point out, which is an interesting thought as you think about it, are the people of that vote are sometimes wiser than those of us who analyze what they're doing. For example, they tend to like divided government.
True.
Because they figure, and especially if you don't think government, you don't want to stop, you want to stop government overreach, well, make sure nobody has the power to do it.
Right.
So, I think the electorate spoke and they're wiser than we are. And I'm looking forward to the next 4 years and beyond.
And hopefully we stop calling each other garbage. That needs to go.
Hopefully, again, the one thing that I did agree with Biden's speech is we can disagree with each other, but you're still an American, whether you won the election or lost in the election. Mm-hmm. And you need to remember, you may not agree all the time with your neighbor, but he's still your neighbor.
Yeah, I mean, I have friends who are really hurting right now because of the election results. I'm not going to go after them.
No, I'm not either.
That doesn't mean I'm not going to go after some of the ones that are, a little more extreme out there, but not my friends. Some
of them earned it.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are with their lunacy, but there's not a friend I have that I would ever call them up and go, ha ha, we won.
No, but there are friends of mine that I will point out down the road. Look, we did this. We accomplished what we said.
Well, I had friends in 2016 disown me, and I didn't even vote for Trump in 2016.
Unfortunately, some of our friends don't listen to the stations, so they're ever going to find out anything what really happened.
So, but I think
we do need to share positive results.
Yeah, and I think if anyone, Trump might be the one to do that, to bring some unity to it. And he's starting off already. He's reaching out to women by putting a woman chief of staff in, the most powerful position in government, short of president. On that note, wrap it up, my friend.
All right, Reclaiming America. Keep coming back week after week and hear our thoughts and help us analyze what's going on. If you look at the top of the screen, you'll see all the wonderful places you can find us up there. And, just check on us, like us, subscribe to us. If you can find a way to send us some suggestions for shows, that'd be great. Or tell us when Dan's wrong, please share that with us.
No, we want comments, Bill. And if they try and tell me we're wrong, we're not going to get any comments.
Well,
Now,
Greta, we need now to help solve this.
All right.
To keep it
On that
Thanks,
note,
everybody.
bye, everybody.
See you in a week.